Welcome to the AI argument. I'm Frank Prendergast, and here with me is my co-host, Justin Collery. Justin, what day of Christmas are we on now, according to OpenAI?
We're about halfway through. I think we're in day 7.
Oh, yeah.
And
We've had some big ones.
ah,
Well, we've kind of had some big ones. Don't get me started. We've had some big announcements.
yeah.
And I opened up the present, and it was an empty box.
Well,
They
you've
were
only
like,
got yourself to blame for that one, Frank.
here you go, have Sora. And I was like, fantastic, ripped it open. Not available in Ireland yet.
Yeah. I mean, who do you blame for this, Frank? I mean, are you blaming OpenAI? Are you blaming Google? Who's actually to blame for you not getting Sora?
Okay, so I mean, we don't know, but the obvious guess is this is a regulatory issue. When you say we do, what have you heard?
Well, no, it's clearly a regulatory issue. There's no doubt about it. It's the same as Meta saying that they weren't going to release the vision in Llama 3.2, and Google actually seemed to just release stuff anyway because they're great. But yeah, Sora, and I'm just so pleased, right? I mean, what would it take for you to go, you know what, the regulation has gone too far here. Maybe we should dial back the regulation because what were you going to do with Sora that I needed protection from that you're not able to get Sora?
Well, I mean, my question would be, I think it's just a question of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and I'm sure we will get Sora. So my question would be like, what is the holdup? And I'm assuming it's essentially just paperwork. There's additional paperwork. It needs to be done. There's additional bureaucracy. I'm okay with that. Yeah, sure. I was gutted we don't have Sora, but I would rather have those I's dotted and those T's crossed and know that when we get it, it's not doing anything that we don't want it to be doing. So right. I'm okay with it. Look, I'm disappointed we don't have it, but I'll stand by my stance on regulations. And also, we don't know. We don't know precisely what regulations are stopping it. We don't know if it's anything to do with AI. If it's just more broader data practices. We just don't know.
All right.
Tell you what we do know, though.
It's bureaucracy. Go on. What do we know?
Well, have you the whole pricing tier and who gets access and everything. So beyond the fact that it's not in Ireland, if you are let's say you're in the States, if you're a Plus user, you get access. If you're a Pro user, so the Plus is 20 a month. If you've got 20 a month, you get access, but you get access to low resolution 5-second generations. If you're on their Pro plan, which is the 200 a month, and I'd like to point out, you were right when we talked about this Pro plan. You were right in terms of them filling it with other stuff. So now, yes, you get unlimited Sora usage on the Pro plan for 200 a month. You get high resolution, so you get 1080p, and you get up to 20 seconds generations. So that's the Plus and the Pro. But in between those tiers, there's the Team plan and there are Enterprise plans. They do not have access to Sora. And Team people in particular are very upset about this because a lot of people like myself, I never got round to like upgrading to Team, but I intended to. I just kept meaning to do it and I just never got around to it. I'm really glad now because when Sora comes to Ireland finally, I'll be able to use it. If I had upgraded to Team, I couldn't. You cannot downgrade from Team to back down to Plus. There's no way to do it. You have to delete your account.
Really? Oh God, that's great. I've seen loads of chatter about that too. Do you know what else I saw? Right, here's my tentative prediction for this week. I saw somebody else put out there that the way OpenAI have these tiers of AI. So tier 1 is like ChatGPT, tier 2 is sort of more agentic, tier 3 is whatever. They have these sort of 5 levels.
Yeah.
And somebody put out there, and it might happen, which is maybe what you'll see a different pricing for each tier, which is kind of what we're seeing now. So what you might see is you've got the basic user pricing, $20 a month, right? And you get most of the tools, right? And whatever. Then if you've got the higher level, which is 200, but when you get really good agents working, that could be your $2,000 a month, right? And then if you've got something which can run an organization, it might be $20,000 a month or whatever, right? So you see this sort of stratification. And So I saw somebody put that forward. That totally makes sense to me. It could happen, and it's going to get people very angry because this technology when it started out was democratizing, so it was going to create this super intelligence. Everybody was going to have access to it. But now, as these sort of pricing strategies come out, what's happening is everybody doesn't have access to it. I can't afford 200 quid a month, so I can generate nice images so long as I'm not in the European Union.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but listen, the big thing for me this week, apart from looking forward to talking to you so that I could give out because people like you were stopping me from getting, and actually, interestingly, I should just note, we checked just before we went on air, right? We do have Santa, right? We do have advanced mode. You haven't ruined Christmas. You nearly did, but you didn't, right? So I'm pleased to say that we have Santa. But anyway, that wasn't the big story for me this week. The big story for me this week was I was not impressed with any of the OpenAI releases. They were all, they were grand. They were fine.
Even the vision mode, so the voice mode with vision, I know, again, I don't have access to it yet, but I don't think that's a regulatory thing. I think that's just a slow rollout thing. But do you not think the vision in voice mode is kind of cool, being able to show ChatGPT stuff through your phone and chat to it? And
yeah, it's okay. I think that will be revolutionary, right? But we literally, the first time we could use it was 5 minutes ago because of regulations and whatnot. But anyway, but what I tried earlier.
Before you go on, and Santa Claus, being able to chat to Santa Claus in voice mode, you don't think that's revolutionary?
I think it's revolutionary. I think it is revolutionary. The thing I think will be revolutionary, I think you did a video about it, was when you share your screen and you can talk to it as you're working on your computer. That I do think is revolutionary. So that you, even if you're doing something, you go, oh, how do I do that? It'll just walk you through how you do it, or it'll suggest, improvements, all that sort of stuff. That's definitely revolutionary. But Google released it first. And for months, I've been here going, oh, Google released a new model. Who cares? Yawn, right? Not very good. This week was the week where I yawned at the OpenAI releases and I used the Google releases and went, wow, that is brilliant. And so Google released 4 things this week. OpenAI released 5, but there were 5 kind of meh things, whereas the Google 4 things were amazing, right? So the first thing that I tried out was, the vision, the talk and the vision thing. And I'm just going to tell you why I think Google's one so far is more groundbreaking than the OpenAI one. So we must put a link right underneath afterwards, right, so that everybody can try it. But you can click on it and you can use your camera on your phone and you can go around your house and you can say, here, what is this? And my brother sent me a piece of, I don't know what you would call it. It's a thing that you put flowers in. What do you call that? Anyway,
a vase?
Vase, yeah, right. In Pablo Picasso type vase. And I was able to go up and say, what is this? What artist style is it in? Blah, blah, all those sort of things. It got it perfectly, right? But what it can also do, and this is the important bit, is through the developer access in the background, it can draw boxes around the objects. And that's the bit that enables agents, which is something else that they talked about this week. So the fact that it can see, and it can see really well, and it can pick things out, that's all really cool, and it's nice to have. But when you can programmatically say, that's great, now can you show me where the OK button is, just under it, whatever, and it gives you a box and you can click on it, well, now you can automate stuff. And they released 2 other really important products. So they had the Project Mariner, right, which they didn't release it generally. I think it's going to be released in January. So Project Mariner is a plug-in to your browser, and it's an agent. You can just tell it to go book flights. You can tell it to do whatever it is you want to do, and it goes off and does it. And you can be sure that it's the same technology in the background. So this is the first agent technology, and I'm confident that it's going to work well.
I mean, it was very similar in a way to like Claude computer use, but it looks like it's much, much easier because they're saying it's basically a Chrome extension, so much easier to use. And I noticed as well when they were talking about it, they were very, very careful to keep insisting that the guardrails and safety that have been built into it in terms of what it can and cannot do, and that it always checks with you before taking actions.
Yeah, the big sort of problem with the computer use is that it just wasn't great, right? That vision capability isn't very good at picking out the coordinates, and it was slow and whatever. Whereas this one, from my use of it so far, I look at it, it's going to be brilliant, right? So that's a big game changer. That's going to be brilliant. Then they also had Project Jules, which is, again, a game changer for people like me. So it just fixes bugs. That's all it does, fixes bugs. And again, if you're thinking about your workflow, right, the interesting part of developing software is coming up with the idea and getting the original or the initial development done. The really boring, niggly bit is just fixing all the horrible bugs and stuff like that. Jules is like Devon, right, which is another product that released this week. And you can just say, here, Jules, would you go and fix the bugs for me, please? You know, and you can hook it up. And it just goes, pulls down the code, reads it, understands it, fixes the bug, tests it, and then pushes it back to you again. I mean, again, in terms of efficiency for developers, enormous, big deal. What else? They also released a research assistant this week. Google did, not OpenAI.
Yeah, well, one that people are saying could be a perplexity killer, essentially.
Yes. So what this does is you can just turn around to it, and Google in particular has an advantage here on this one, saying, I'm interested in selling widgets to Venezuela. Can you go and research that for me, please, and come back and give me a report? And it uses all of the Google tools in the background. So it uses search, it uses all of its, the knowledge that it has real time, puts together a report with sources, and then gives you a report on that particular thing. Again, amazing. So that's Google. That's 4 amazing things that Google have released this week. So you got the research thing, the vision model, the bug fixer, and the agent, and they released it in one day. None of this rubbish where you're, doing stocking fillers, whatever. Bored now, give me the good stuff. It's like opening. You're looking forward to a present at Christmas, and you open it up, and it's a box of USA biscuits. Jesus, not again. Not again. So,
yeah.
What was your impression of the releases from OpenAI, the ones that you did get to see?
Yeah, I mean, the Sora was the big disappointment that I really wanted to play with, and again, I still don't have vision mode. I still don't have vision mode in my phone app, and there's no, who knows when I'll get it. So I have Santa Claus. I have the Santa Claus voice mode, and so that's about it, really. So I did play with Google's. I went to Gemini 2.0 and I played with the stream your computer to it and have it and work with it. I think my expectations were probably set a little bit too high, because it's they say it's real time, and so what I was hoping that it could do was, for example, I asked it, look, if I scroll down through my LinkedIn feed, will you be able to analyze the posts as I scroll, and then I'll ask you questions about them? And it said, oh yeah, absolutely, sure. It can't do that. It confidently made up a load of stuff about them. In fact, I asked it to count the posts as I scrolled, and 2 out of 3 times it got it completely wrong. I scrolled past 10 posts, it got it right once. The other times it said there was like 2 or 3 posts. It made up the number of comments, etc., that were on a post. So, it's still amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's still amazing. I think my expectations were just a little bit too high when I heard real-time sharing your screen and real-time analysis, etc. It is real-time, but it's like you've got to show it something, make sure it's seen it, talk to it about it as you're looking at it. And so incredible and amazing. I'm not entirely sure what I would use it for, or I'm not really entirely sure what the benefit of the real-time sharing is over, say, what I do normally, which is just like take a screenshot and throw it up and chat about it.
Yeah. So what Google are doing is, I noticed that too, right? The model for that is clearly, I think it's a very small model, right? That's how it's so quick, because the voice is instant. I mean, the voice interaction on it is just amazing. I was really, really pleased with that. The voice itself is not great, but the interaction is really, really good. And then the be able to pick out objects is very, very good. And what Google are doing is they're building models that are designed for a specific purpose, as opposed to OpenAI, who are building a huge model that's designed for every purpose. So Google have, what do they have? AlphaGo, they had AlphaFold, they have Alpha, what else? They're doing all of these, very specific models. And this is a very specific model for real-time vision and voice. And I think what will happen is you will then have the bigger, more capable model, the reasoning model behind it, which controls this model to control your computer. That's the agent.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you talked about the spatial awareness, and when you couple like real-time vision and spatial awareness, like they had a very, very like brief little throwaway comment in one of the videos where they were saying, we're looking at coupling this with robotics, and you're like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. So now the robot can see, the robot can interpret, the robot spatially knows exactly what's going on. It's massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah. Brilliant. Delighted. So I will say, right, so as it is today, Google are now my favorite AI company. I've switched from OpenAI and I'm now a Google boy, and I prefer Google. But if, Frank, I was to give you 12 presents, one by one, like this, I wouldn't give you the biggest present first. I'd give you the smallest present first. And then as I gave you each present, the present would get bigger and bigger and bigger until I gave you the biggest present last. So even though this week Google is my favorite AI company, I think next week it might change again.
Any idea what they might be building up to?
GPT 4.5. That's my this week's presentation. And we might have to do a late show next week. Because it's in 15 minutes or whatever when they do their releases.
Right.
But look, I'll know the day before, but I think it could be GPT 4.5. That's what I would expect, and I would expect it to be amazing. And that will be the big reveal on the last day. Interesting.
So yeah, we've talked about OpenAI, we've talked about Google. Anthropic, they haven't released anything mind-blowing lately, to the best of my knowledge, unless I've missed something.
They released Haku 3.5,
right?
Which they did it very silently, and they just sort of quietly put it out there, and I haven't got a chance to use it yet. So Haku is the small model; it's faster, cheaper, but very capable, right? So they did release a model, but it didn't get a whole lot of fanfare. It's there. If you want to use it, go ahead and use it. Much more importantly, especially for you, Frank, is that they released a framework called Clio, which was their framework to privately, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but anyway, it was their framework to privately identify what people use their models for. Now, this is a big deal. It's a big deal for two reasons. It's a big deal because they want to do it because they're obviously very concerned about safety. That's the reason they told us, right? So if they want to make sure that their models are being used safely, they can use Clio and it can basically analyze it. And it does it. And this is actually, I'm saying this genuinely, right? Because I genuinely think that Europe is doing just terrible damage to itself at the moment by having all this regulation and this red tape. So what Anthropic are doing, and they've shown it in the paper that they released, is they can now use this tool to spot what people are using their models for and when they're using it for harmful purposes. And in particular, if you were a very smart hacker or nefarious person, what you would do is you wouldn't, say, give me the recipe for crystal meth, all in one prompt. And how do I put it together? And what do I do first? Right. You would have like 6 or 7 accounts, and you would give a small piece of information to each of those 6 or 7 accounts. And so you would get the information that you need, but no one of those individual sort of sessions or accounts would be able to know that actually you're cooking crystal meth.
I like how much thought you've given this.
How
many accounts do you have, Justin?
They all have numbers. You wouldn't even know, right? But using this method, Anthropic were able to identify when that's so that's a real harmful use, right? And using this method, Anthropic were able to identify and to kill these accounts, right? To just cut them off, close down the accounts, so they can use this to stop. This is how you regulate AI, right? That's a smart use of technology to make it safe. And Europe, if they wants to get involved in this, should be mandating this type of research and this type of software. The other reason that they don't mention in their paper is it also tells them exactly why people are using their models, which when you think has fantastic commercial value. And
Yeah.
people use it for, stuff that you would imagine. So 10% of people use it for coding, 9% of people use it for content creation, which I found interesting because I like to code and you like to create
Yeah.
content.
And
So
they're the top two. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so that was kind of fun. 7% was for education, 6% was for AI and machine learning, which I guess is just Anthropic themselves making their stuff better. Just less than 6% was business operations, right? So that was just business people saying, how do I make my business better? Which again, I guess is something that you might be interested in, which is cool. But they also, then they went into break it down. Certain countries have different breakdowns, right? So they were sort of biased in different directions. And I thought that was really interesting too. Could you want to guess? Okay, so Spain. Can you guess what maybe people in Spain use AI for more than anybody else?
More than anybody else.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Paella recipes.
That's a good guess. Economics and childcare. Childcare, they were way ahead of everybody else at childcare, which makes me think Spain is just a very nice country. That made me
Childcare.
warm to Spain. Yeah. China. What would China use AI for more than anybody else?
I have no idea. Not a clue. I mean, I would have guessed China would have been the same as everyone else. That it would have been coding would probably be the top one.
Okay, so this is just okay. They do coding, but these two particular genres they do way more than anybody else.
Right. Okay. Not a clue. Not a clue.
Crime thrillers and aging populations. That one was interesting culturally to me.
Very interesting. Wow. Do they talk about what that means? As in, is it people writing crime thrillers?
Yeah,
What's going on here? Okay, interesting. Interesting. And in terms of aging populations, like um researching.
yeah, researching how to deal with aging populations. Fascinating in the
Oh,
Chinese context because they've gone over the hump of their, population boom and their population is now starting to decline. So very interesting. Now, I'm confident that you're going to get this next one. Japan. What were the two categories that Japan searched for more than most anybody else? You've got
I
to
have
get
no
this one.
I
Come
have not a
on,
clue.
Japan. What do you think? They use, I'd say, Sora a lot for this one. You don't because you can't.
No, what are you what
Come
but hang
on.
on. But in Anthropic, in Claude, or in
Yeah,
Anthropic's
I know
model.
it's in Claude, it's in Anthropic. You can't generate images, but if they could, they would for this particular use.
I have no idea. Tell me.
Anime.
Interesting. Hang on. Oh, it must be for writing. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Okay.
writing. And the second
Right.
one in Japan was aging populations again. They use Japan and China were the two big ones. Now Japan, it's really obvious, but I just think it's such an interesting. Do you know that Google come out every year with the things that are most searched for, and it's kind of an interesting insight into people's psyches. This gives you the
Absolutely.
same
Yeah.
from a different way. Gives you an insight into people's psyches. What are people using AI for?
And of course, like these topics kind of make sense to me now because I hadn't kind of twigged it. But of course, like one of the main reasons that people choose Claude over any of the other frontier models is for the quality of writing. That is the
Yeah,
thing that it has become kind of known for. So crime thrillers, anime, that kind of thing. Yes, of course, it starts to make sense now.
fascinating. So that's really good. It's a thing called Clio, and forget your regulation, forget your bureaucracy. Just get everybody to implement a system like Clio, and you'll get fantastic market intelligence, really interesting topics, and you'll get to stop the baddies. So everybody wins.
Yeah, no, it is. It is absolutely fascinating. Well, I don't know if it's the answer to regulatory issues, but certainly it's absolutely fascinating to see what people are actually using AI for, and yeah, at the country level also totally fascinating. So OpenAI had a 4-hour outage, and you sent me this amazing clip of Sam Altman talking about having to work without ChatGPT for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I missed. I must have missed the outage. Maybe I was taking a prolonged coffee break or something, because I would definitely have felt it if I was trying to work and I didn't have access to ChatGPT. I would feel that big time. And Sam Altman was making that point, and making the point of like, yeah, some of us are already becoming very reliant on the tools. And that's going to be more and more the case. And what does that mean for us? Kind of fascinating.
It's interesting. It's almost like the internet going down. It's that serious. It's from an enterprise point of view, it says that you cannot be reliant on one particular provider. It's a bit like an internet connection. You need two of them, and you need to be able to. I mean, if it's running mission critical software, you can't have an outage, or else, of course, OpenAI have to sort of, diversify their infrastructure so that if half their network goes down, the other half stays up, and you're still able to pass traffic. But it happened in the evening time, so you were probably, down the pub or gone to bed or something like that.
Probably, yeah. Probably. I was probably watching Day of the Jackal. The last episode dropped yesterday.
Oh, really excellent. Well, I'll have to watch that this evening. So yeah, look, it's an interesting thing. It just goes to show how important this technology is becoming, and you have to protect yourself against these outages. It's an important thing from a business point of view. Nick Bostrom, let's talk quickly about, because we don't have long left. Nick Bostrom is a very important man when it comes to AI.
Yes. So Nick Bostrom, he wrote the book Superintelligence, and one of the one of the arguments that comes up again and again and again is based on a theory that was in his book, and it has become like this. It's almost become like a meme that that AI will turn us all into paper clips. It was a thought experiment in his book. I don't remember the exact details of it, but it was like, basically, if you are not careful and you give an AI a seemingly innocent task like make paper clips, if it goes off the rails, it could just infinitely and endlessly generate paper clips, to the point that it's like, you know what, I need more energy to create these paper clips. Ooh, I can harvest the humans for energy, and turn them into paper clips. And so his book, was warning about the dangers of the pursuit of superintelligence. And you sent me that clip in which he didn't use the term difficult teenage years, but what he seemed to be describing were exactly what you've described on the show as the difficult teenage years. So you must have been pretty interested in that. And I would say that you're not normally a Nick Bostrom fan, right?
No, not at all. Me and Nick don't get on. No, Nick Bostrom, it will be in the sort of the deceleration camp, right? He's always warning about the dangers of AGI and AI, the paperclip thing. And what he came out this week and said, he totally agreed with me, Frank. He totally agreed with me. I'm taking this one, right? What he said was that if we're going to get to AGI and ASI, which we will, right, it's probably better that we get there sooner rather than later, because there's this bit in the middle, and he sort of goes around talking about it. It's a little bit disjointed, but basically he's saying the bit between now and when you get to AGI is difficult. And there's possibilities for bad actors to act in bad ways, to do things which we don't want. And so therefore, the sooner we get to AGI, the sooner that you have the power to stop that from happening. So we need to get through the difficulty. He didn't call them difficult teenage years, but he totally described them as difficult teenage years. I'll write him a letter.
Yeah. I think, and to be fair, difficult teenage years, much better terminology. He referred to it as we're in very choppy waters right now. And then, so I've only seen the little clip. I think I'll have to put on my weekend watching the entire interview to get the full context, because he said we're in choppy waters, and he said something along the lines of, the problem with being in choppy waters is that a tentacle could come out of the water and drag us down at any given moment. And I would love to know a little bit more of the detail of what he thinks, what he thinks the dangers of the difficult teenage years are. And, what's making him now say, you know what, it would be better to just get there sooner than faster, if that's where we're headed. And let's be clear, it's not like he's done a complete reversal. It's clear that he still very much sees the dangers, the potential dangers of AGI or ASI. However, he thinks now, well, look, we're headed there, better to get there soon.
Do you know what I
And I
think?
wonder, do you think it's for the same reasons that you do, that we're going to see in the difficult teenage years, we're going to see a lot more kind of inequality, and maybe a bit, as you said earlier, that that democratization piece will start to disintegrate, and it will become very much kind of the haves and have-nots.
Yes, that's exactly what I think, and I think it's going to happen. I was just going to say, I think it's going to happen much. I'll be very interested by this time next week. And certainly by the end of January, I'll be very interested to see what the state of play is. Because, I mean, we've joked before about me holding my breath until there's been a new model release, right? And there's been more released in the last week than there has been in months, right?
You're
And it's been
hyperventilating at this stage.
yeah, I know. Like, all right, and it's been a very busy year, right? And I sort of feel like I'm sort of just crawling to Christmas. It's like, oh my god, you know that sort of sense where you're just exhausted and you're looking forward to your
Yeah.
Christmas break. And Google and AI have just ruined my Christmas break because they're releasing so much stuff that there's no doubt that I'm going to spend my entire Christmas just playing with this stuff and figuring out what I can do. I'm not going to get any break at all. So they've ruined Christmas, not you, Frank. So you should take something from that, I guess. But anyway, the point to answer your question on that is, I mean, I think the future is going to get much clearer in the next month, right? So if we get a new model release, which I think we will from OpenAI next week, which is 4.5, we'll get to see is that as big a jump as 3.5 to 4 was. And if 3.5 to 4 is the same as 4 to 4.5, well then, yeah, things are going to change next year quite drastically. And then they're going to release agents next week as well. And Google are also going to release some form of agents. And again, if they are actually capable at doing things, not just sort of, not like the Anthropic computer use, but actually good at doing stuff, I think I think that next year we do head into those difficult teenage years where, you will start to see impacts. So yeah, it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. So to finish on, something else that you've said on this show a while back, you were talking about robotics and generating a worldview and understanding the world, and you were talking about how, if I remember correctly, I think you were saying basically, if you were a car manufacturer, even if you weren't Tesla, even if you weren't going towards self-driving cars, you'd be sticking cameras in your cars and you'd be gathering the data because it's going to be so useful for AI, for building a world model, for robotics, etc. And I was reminded of it by an odd little story that popped up in my feed somewhere that said, do you remember Pokémon Go?
I do.
That thing, it was like augmented reality. It would tell you where there was a Pokemon in your area. You turn on your camera and you'd see this augmented reality Pokemon, and you had to go and collect the Pokemon. And I, at one point, a couple of years ago, it was a massive craze, and people were causing traffic jams because they were running out into the road to get Pokemons and all kinds of things. Turns out, apparently, that all that data was being snaffled and being used to train an AI system in exactly the types of things you're talking about: worldview, world model, all that kind of good stuff. And interestingly, this is just a tiny thing, but the article happened to mention, which I thought was fascinating, Pokemon Go users couldn't care less. They were like, yeah.
So
and
great.
They kept playing. So.
Oh my god, that is hilarious, Frank, and I love it. And I've got terrible news for you, by the way. A similar story. I love that story. I think it's a great use. Brilliant. Captchas.
The what now?
The Captcha things, they're really annoying, right? So you're trying to go on to get onto a website and it says prove that you're human.
Yeah.
Right? They pick all the squares that contain buses.
Are you a robot? Yeah.
Yeah, are you a robot? Which is going to take on all sorts of new connotations, next year, the year after. But anyway, here's some bad news for you, Frank. I'm going to burst a bubble. That wasn't checking if you were human at all. It was nothing to do with checking if you were human. It was to train a vision model as well. It was a brilliant way for free to get people to test the vision model, because the vision model would do the same thing. And you were just validating the vision model. It was brilliant.
Yeah. Of course. I'm just sitting there giving it loads of data on what a bicycle looks like. Yeah.
Yes. Well done. There we go. Right. Great awesome crack as always. I'm
100%.
exhausted. We're only halfway through the 12 days of Christmas. I cannot wait to see what happens next week because as I said, this week has been a bit of a disappointment, except for Google. I think next week's going to be better.
I have fingers crossed, and fingers crossed, whatever it is, we actually get to access it and experience it. And I know, I will take the blame. If we don't get them. But yeah, it would just be typical now if they release a load of stuff and we're like, yeah, we'll tell you about them in the new year sometime, lads.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant. All right, Frank, we'll talk about it next week. Talk to you then.
Cheers.
See ya.